I will call to order the special meeting of our Police Commission at 5:02 p.m. on October 13th. Let us stand to the pledge, will we? Behind you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving to the next item on our agenda, correspondence. Commissioner Fogarty, could you be so kind as to read our correspondence?
I will. Received from a resident to SPD. The resident was thankful for the speed enforcement on West Mountain Road. He frequently runs and bikes on this road, and the police visibility keeps speeding at a minimum. From an out-of-town resident to Officer Arnold. The out-of-town resident was in an accident. Her husband called to compliment Officer Arnold's response. He is a gentleman and could not have been more courteous or helpful. From a resident for Officer Gray, Sergeant Sagan. The resident fell off her deck and fractured her arm. She was grateful for the prompt response and assistance. Resident for Officer Colby, Officer Arnold, and SPD. The resident had a medical emergency and was choking. I cannot tell you how comforting it is to have such a fine group of young men and women looking after our safety in this town. And that's the end of the letter.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from the September 13th, 2021 regular meeting. Do we have a motion?
I move to be accepted as written.
Do we have a second? Any discussion, questions, concerns? In that case, all in favor of approving the minutes from the September 13th, 2021 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is old business. Does anyone have any old business?
No.
Okay.
No, okay.
Moving right on to the next item on our agenda, reports. Chairperson's report. I wanted to give everyone a heads up that the Board of Selectmen has a meeting tonight and they will be discussing end of year finance, and we have 2 items. So if you have time and want to tune in tonight, check that out. Has there been the car theft, the youth car theft?
Question on the 2 items.
Okay.
Do you have the specifics on the 2 items we discussed, or?
It is the renovation of the space downstairs for the lieutenants to have their offices. And it is the variable message boards. These have both been items that we've requested for the last at least 2 years that I'm aware of, that we go and ask them for. So hopefully they'll consider them this evening.
So as we talk about renovation of spaces, I guess I'm thinking about, we've in the past year talked about long-term vision. I guess renovations would be considered a 5-year fix or so. So not part of the longer term discussion.
So we talked about that briefly at our last meeting, and I'm still waiting to hear back. The chief and the town manager and I met with Tom Roy last month about a long-term facilities plan and a short-term facilities plan. And he was going back to Tecton and asking them to resubmit a proposal, because the previous report was just a laundry list of like what we needed, but there were no viable solutions, or any solutions, viable or otherwise. So we have asked them to go back and resubmit a proposal to determine what our needs are. That did not happen. They resubmitted the proposal, but they left out the second round of interviews, which is something we had asked for. So now we're still waiting for them to resubmit the resubmittal of the proposal, which includes the second round of interviews with the invested parties.
Okay.
Yes, and others.
Yes. So we're still waiting. I will follow up with him and hopefully at our next meeting have a report. But that ties in with downstairs right now. We don't have space for all of our lieutenants. So initially there was a plan to do like reconfigure the current lieutenant space, but that was a big expense. So we're looking for a more cost-effective short-term solution. that will give everyone the office space that they need to do their jobs effectively. And from there, we can look at long-term, what are the needs of the department, whether that is a different facility or what.
Yeah, I just didn't want, I don't want renovations to get shot down, given that there's even discussion about a long-term plan, when the short-term fixes clearly make sense. And so, maybe some,
My hope is that because it is office space and we are in a building full of office space, that if our long-term plan was to build a whole new state-of-the-art facility for the police department, the office space could still be used because it is office space, and an office is an office. So my hope would be that it would not be detrimental to renovate the current plan to put in an office, as it would always be able to be used as an office.
For whoever.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, great. Fixes
not
are
gonna
needed,
have, like,
period.
A
Yeah.
wall of, I don't know, a bulletproof wall to shoot at or anything, it's just gonna be regular office space. Although maybe, that could be fun too. Obviously, I am not in charge of designing the room. So that was, you all got the email about the Municipal Employee Relations Act training. That is on November 10th at 5:30. It's a 1.5-hour virtual meeting. If you would like to attend, respond to that email. And the final thing that Travis reminded me was that there was a youth car conference that Tanisha had sent us information about. And I just wondered if anyone attended. It was put on by Yukon and Merpa. No, anybody?
I attended both of them.
I was on the second one. The
Okay.
first one I got shanghaied, but the second one, Chief will probably heard more things than I did, but there was a wide range of thoughts, and they were always coming up in the chat from here to here.
Gotcha.
And I think there was a lot of good points made. At one end of the spectrum was, are we blaming the victim? And the other end of the spectrum was, we have to remake the entire world in order to get this problem to stop. So, and then there was everything in between. And it was a good discussion. It just, I was amazed at how far and wide some of the thoughts were.
Do you have
And
any?
Terry, did you feel like there were any solid action items that were taken away? Like, okay, here are some immediate fixes that are gonna happen?
No, there was nothing. It was certainly a discussion to bring out ideas. There was no action plan as a result of it.
That's how part one was as well.
Yeah.
I think it may have clarified some things, though. A lot of the assumptions are that they're youth stealing cars. And I think there's some truth to a lot of that. But nationally, we have such a low solvability of car thefts that we don't necessarily know who is committing these. We do know that a lot that have been arrested or caught in Connecticut have been juveniles. But, it can go anywhere from, 8% up to 20% solvability on these. So it's really difficult at times to say the age of the suspect. But I agree with Commissioner Fogarty that it was a good discussion and there were no solutions necessarily presented. Some varying ideas and maybe a little bit of clarity about what we're actually looking at.
And I think I know the answer, but, we're assuming it's youth mostly, and the MO is use the car in a follow-on crime and then ditch the car. So it's not, we're not going after car syndicates that are, using the cars for parts or that sort of thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. We are finding definitely throughout the state that some of these cars are being used in violent crimes.
A couple of ideas that they brought up was that the reasons for stealing cars were boredom, just for a thrill, and it's an opportunity crime. It was just something they could do at that moment. And it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of plan with a lot of the thefts. It's just something that happened, spur of the moment, which is a little bit frustrating in its own right. But some of the people were think Ileana was from New Haven, I think, and she's a younger woman who has absolute experience in all this because she was raising her younger brother at the age of 12 years old while her mom, the single mom, was out working. And she understands why some of the ideas that were brought out will not work. And you can't argue with facts like that. It's they were blaming the media for putting out a false narrative out there and putting fear into people instead of trying to solve the problem. There was the attorney on there said there's a lot of diversion programs that just don't seem to last long enough. They get into a diversion program for a couple of months instead of a couple of years, which may be required. And then it's a parenting issue is one of the big drivers. Is if the parents aren't involved, then the kids have their own challenges. And it was about, they were trying to figure out a way of incorporate education into this whole problem, is to educate the parents and the kids about the accountability and responsibility for their actions. But again, it was a discussion, no direction of any kind to what they should do next.
Was there discussion, Terry, about the fact that, you hear that there's no ramifications, so it's, just go out and steal a car, and then go out and steal another car next week, and steal a car a month later, and then nothing ever happens.
And one of the things they brought up is it's basically a suburban problem, because out in the suburbs there's more key fob cars than there are in the city, and so they come to the suburbs because it's easier to steal the cars because people are leaving their fobs in the car, and that's where the comment came up of blaming the victim. And there's good arguments to both sides, and they did talk about how hard it is to maintain a juvenile if they're caught in custody for longer than 6 hours. And so there's challenges with the law. There's an excellent point made that with the juvenile being handled in the juvenile system, that's one thing, but once you advance them to the adult system, then they have a permanent record. And they're really, really trying hard not to put these kids into the adult judicial system because of that. And I agree with that. There's got to be probably about 400 different ideas about how to do that, but I think it's the right message because we all know how much of a challenge it is for a person with a police record to get a job, anything that pays worthwhile. So I thought that was one of the key points that came out and why they were trying to handle this at the juvenile level. But there's no answer for diversion programs versus incarceration versus something in between about what to do with the current people, the 5 to 8% that do get caught. And that's all it is 5 to 8% according to their statistics.
It's unfortunate because a lot of, if I was to make an assumption, the children that are growing up in that specific area are being traumatized every day. And let me see, what was it? Monday, I took them to Parkville Market to go and eat. Just to drive down Park Street, and a couple cars ahead of us, they're shooting. So my children and I literally witnessed a 16-year-old female get shot, and the car speed off and hit the pole, and another one that we found out later was stolen, continued down the street. So this is stuff that they see every day, and it's sad because there is no outlet for them. There is nothing else for them to do but to get into mischief. You have programs, you have smaller nonprofits that open up like Peace Builders or the Peace Center that want to try to do stuff to help these kids, but this is the stuff that they see every day, and this is their life. And the only way to help that is to help the adults that are in that area to be able to help the youth that are there in that area as well. and provide resources for them, to provide jobs for them as well. Like a female that I was working with, worked at Sabaros, was promoted throughout Sabaros, but she had an incarceration record. They knew this when they hired her, and then were going to actually promote her to a leadership position, but let her go once they found out that, once they did the background check. But they already knew because she was coming from a halfway house. And so folks say that they're a second chance company, but they're really not. And there's nothing else left for them to do but to survive. And it's really unfortunate that that's all there is for them. When you want to try to turn your life around and you can't, because no one is giving you a second chance to be able to turn your life around. And that's what a lot of folks see, and that have been through the criminal justice system. So.
One of the other topics was how this is a multi-generational problem.
Mhm.
Just as Tanisha was describing, if the parent can't get a real job and the kids are out there causing mischief either to make money or just for mischief, it's not just the kids stealing the cars, and a couple of the speakers were talking about, you gotta solve the whole societal problem to really solve the problem. And so that's why there's really not an action plan. You couldn't eat that elephant one bite at a time, it's too big.
There's no tomorrow. You have to take everything into account. You really do. And the pandemic just made it even worse, so.
Well, thank
So-
you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, so is there a follow-on to this discussion, or was that a one-time shot?
From my point of view, and Chief, you can chime in, I think it was a two-time shot, but a one-time
Yeah.
shot. And I think the organizations that were involved were going to take the comments and the discussions and try to formulate a plan. But there's nothing near-term that I'm aware of as a result of watching that.
All right, and then sorry to drag this out. So Chief, back to Simsbury, no changes to our, to our SOPs on how we handle this, other than just keep awareness up
Right,
in the
keep
town.
awareness of-
Yeah.
So what we can do here as a community is, many of the things that we have been promoting, making sure that our cars are locked and that our key fobs are not available. And then community-based things, if we see, hear about, interact with people who maybe fall into that category, that bucket of needing something, needing some support, needing some family support, needing some things to do, then, us as a community should be looking for ways to help that family. I'm gonna knock on a little fake wood here, but our thefts have remained at 9 for this calendar year. So we had 2 in August, 1 early August, one mid to late August. And it seems like that's a bit of a trend in the region anyways. So maybe some aspect of this is starting to turn the other way. Not sure.
Well, I want to thank you, Terry, for the update and changing your thoughts. I appreciate that. Any other? All right. Turn it over to the chief for his report.
Okay, thank you. Just quickly on personnel, Officer Kyle Colby successfully completed the field training and evaluation program last week. He's been assigned to the patrol division under Lieutenant Greg Simsbury. Officer Jeff Vollmer and Samantha Rosa are doing well in the police academy. We expect to see them within the next month and a half to 2 months. We still have 3 members who are recuperating from illnesses or injuries, and we expect to see them back in the next few months, sort of a staggered response, or return, I should say, from them, and they're doing much better. I already gave you the motor vehicle theft update. And sort of to add on to that, we've also been tracking our number of entries into vehicles to either look for things or potentially take a car, and those are at 37, which is a big difference compared to last year. We had 199. Not a new trend, but it's been hitting our region now this year, and very close to us very recently, but there's been an increase in ATM thefts from businesses throughout Connecticut. We've communicated this information to our local businesses. This is the second or third time that we have done that through Simsbury Main Street Partnership and the Chamber of Commerce. In that communications, we provided suggestions on what they can do, and then also what we can do. We can do security assessments of their businesses if they would like.
Has anyone taken you up on that?
Not recently that I'm aware of.
So they're taking the actual machine?
Yeah.
That's like when they took rope
Yeah.
it and.
It's the smaller ones that are like inside stores.
They're like kind of freestanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Throughout the state, they've been ripped out by vehicles before, they've been hacked away at by hand and tool.
Something she was like, Budley, those cop and wrapped around.
Yes.
Yeah.
So some upcoming events. This Saturday, the 16th, is the Terriffill Halloween Parade and Trunk or Treat at Trinity Church. So you'll see a police presence there participating in and also helping with the safe parading on Winthrop Street. The following day, on Sunday, October 17th, is the annual Spooktacular celebration at the Performing Arts Center from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. There'll be a drive-through trick-or-treat event there, which is what they had last year, and you will see our police officers there again, both for the drive-through event and then helping with maintaining the safety of the event. During the months of October, November, and the first part of December this year, the department will be displaying pink on our uniforms and on our cruisers. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and November has been a month to promote awareness of all types of cancers. Our hope is to bring awareness to generate financial and emotional support for those who have been impacted by cancer. And again, this year we will partner with our friends at Connecticut Children's Medical Center for PJ Day for the kids on December 10th. Next fiscal year budget, the schedule has not come out yet, but I will provide you with budget recommendations before your next meeting. And they have set the annual tri-board meeting for December 1st.
So an update on the fleet. 3 cars that we ordered last fiscal year have arrived at our vendor to be outfitted. We're hoping to have them finished by the end of the year. We have 5 more cars that have been ordered with an unknown expected delivery date. A lot of the different manufacturers are heavily delayed. We have 3 Explorers and 2 Tahoes that are on order. Just to note, I mean, because of the delay in getting the cars, our mileage and maintenance schedule is a little bit out of whack from previous years, but it was such a long period of time from the delay from when we ordered the cars. And as far as the radio system upgrade, all of our portable radios are in, being issued to the officers now. All of the mobile radios are in for all the departments. In November, the vendor will be setting up a training dispatch console to familiarize dispatchers and officers on the new system. And we are still waiting for the installation of some of the repeaters on some of the tower sites to be completed. I'm hoping to have the whole project completed by the year's end.
Is that at all tied into the survey that Main Street Partnership? No, okay. I didn't know if there was a connection.
No.
I have a question. On the 23rd, I think, of October, there's a drug, I don't want to say, yeah, take back. I don't want to say buy back, take back. Are we putting anything out there for folks to know that they can come to the police department and drop off on one-time medication?
Yeah, so years ago, I think it was maybe, might have been 2007 or so, we actually participated with the take back down at Simsbury Commons. And we had, you know, a fairly decent showing, but we have found that regular use of our med box here is very successful.
Okay.
So we will remind people,
Okay.
and we will remind people that we have that here. It is always on our website, and we have occasionally refreshed it on our social media, on Facebook page, but Yeah, we will put that out. And we haven't normally seen much of an increase, but it's a good reminder.
Okay. I believe it's October 23rd, that's a Saturday, I think so.
So Chief, our Medbox gets a steady input.
It does.
Yeah, terrific.
So yeah, that's good.
24/7 access, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't recall, I don't know, Commissioner, if you do, I think that was like 2006 or so. I'm not sure how long we've had that. It's been a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
over 10 years, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it's terrific.
And that's all we have.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to look at the consolidated monthly report and the preliminary monthly report?
Yes.
Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Is there any highlights that you see, Chief, that we need to address going into next year? That'll be in your next budget. Is there anything here that is disturbing to you, any trend that we might not pick up quickly?
No, I think, we see a steady increase in our medical calls, which we've seen that for years and years. But no, nothing in here speaks to that. We will be addressing the staffing numbers again. And that's about it. Yeah. But nothing in this actual report.
Will there be an opportunity for us before the tri-board meeting to go over with you or with the selectmen this department's budget for next year?
Well, I'll set up that meeting.
Okay.
Now that we know when the tri-board budget meeting is, the tri-board meeting is, we usually have our introductory
Right.
budget meeting prior to that.
Correct.
So I will reach out to the board of selectmen as well as the town manager to get that now that I have an idea of what we're going
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is new business. Any new business? Okay, in that case, I will turn it over to Lieutenant Chase for our presentation.
Thank you. So Chief Bolter, Chief Davis, and I want to take this opportunity to provide an update on some of the policies that we've been working on recently, specifically in the areas of use of force. We like to refer to all these policies, use of force, as a response to aggression and resistance. And this is not necessarily anything that is brand new to us. However, there was, back in November of 2020, it was a product of a law that was passed in Connecticut. The police academy adopted a model policy for all use of force instances. So it's a policy that has to be adopted by each agency within the state of Connecticut by the end of this year. So in response to that, we've been working on reorganizing our policies. Like I mentioned, it's not necessarily anything that is new to us. It's not going to be any new policy. We've been, I like to take these opportunities to kind of give our agency a pat on the back, because I think that it's certainly deserved. I'm very proud to work for this department and to serve with the officers that I serve with. We've been nationally accredited since 2011, and that's part of that accreditation through COEA. We have adopted these use of force policies. So it's not necessarily anything that's new. It's just that with us adopting the model policy from Post and from the state of Connecticut, that we're going to be reorganizing how our policies are laid out. And I'll provide a couple of examples of that.
Lieutenant, may I ask a question?
Of course.
Are we bound to that model policy? I mean, there's no, we can't change it anyway.
Correct. So
by statute, we're stuck with that.
yes. So by statute, every department has to adopt the police academy's model policy by the
Okay.
end of this calendar year. So by January 1st of 2022.
Thank you.
Absolutely, you're welcome. So the standard is that the law is that we have to either meet or exceed that model policy. So again, come back to us taking pride in our agency and wanting to provide the best quality of service to our community possible, we're seeking and striving to exceed it. So one of the ways that we're going to be doing that and exceeding it is through taking the model policy and implementing it into our SOPs, our standard operating procedures. But we're going to also be, there's some things that we've had in the policies from the past that aren't necessarily included in that model policy. So we don't want to do away with that policy. We want to maintain the highest standard possible. And what we're doing is we're working on policies in baton, the patrol rifle, handcuffing, OC spray, officer involved shooting procedures, and department issued sidearms. So this is all in addition to everything that's mentioned in the model policy. So there'll be more policy that our officers are going to be trained on and are going to implement. So again, policies are fantastic, and certainly it's going to be something that we're going to distribute and disseminate throughout our agency. One of the things the thing that's most important is how we're going to implement that. So we have the policy, but how we're going to actually implement it through our officers and put that into action. So one of the things that the Academy is currently doing right now, they're hosting courses on the development of instructors that will, specifically in the area of this model policy. So we've taken the liberty and we've sent numerous officers from our department to become instructors in this area, to specialize in this area. Once they receive that training, we've already kind of put the wheels in motion to come back and do an in-depth review of those policies with those instructors, with all of the members of our agency. But in addition to that, we're going to provide scenario-based training, and that will entail hypothetical type situations where force may be necessary. And one of the ways that we're going to help provide that to our officers is through the new virtual reality simulator that the agency has recently purchased. One of the things, and again, I have to take this opportunity to give our agency a pat on the back. De-escalation is one of the areas of focus in the new model policy for use of force, or as we like to refer to it, as response to aggression and resistance. This is not something that is new to us. It's something that we have been training our officers with from the very beginning. In fact, we just hosted a training that all of our officers went through over the summer, specifically and solely in the area of de-escalation. But as you mentioned, it is one of the focal points for the state of Connecticut model policy. And as I mentioned, it's something that we have been implementing into our repertoire and into our training for quite some time now. Does anyone have any questions in regards to these policies or anything related to use of force, things of that nature?
The only statement is I'm glad you're putting such an emphasis on the de-escalation. That's critical, and it's whether it's the workplace at command or it's the police department here or it's any place. De-escalation is critical, and the skills just go through that officer's entire life.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that our officers are fantastic and have shown a track record of taking that extra time to consider all options, and I think that it starts with training from the very beginning with communication and things of that nature. So.
Two questions. So one has to do with, are there any budgetary impacts? Like the state comes out with, hey, here's the new policy, you must do X, Y, and Z to get fully trained up. Is there any kind of state assistance that we needed to leverage, or are there budgetary impacts that we had to eat to make this happen?
Just a couple, hours here and there, sending our instructors down to the required training for this new training program that they put out. Our instructors have to teach that as part of our training. So that's a 2-hour class?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a 2-hour class that the instructors have gone to, and a couple of those are on different shifts, so we've incurred a little bit of additional cost there, which is minimal in the big picture. What we actually need to train, we're not going to. We do that training every year anyways. So
Okay.
there's not going to be a large impact. And what is in that model policy, as the lieutenant said, is most things that we've been doing and we've been training anyways. So there'll just be a slightly different
So
emphasis.
just tweak to the regiment here.
Yeah, almost codified, because a lot of it has not been in writing.
Yeah.
You know, so it gives you a little bit of philosophy in there, theory on use of force or response to aggression or resistance, and it just codifies it.
So that's great to hear that, Simsbury is one step ahead on the policy here. Are there any shortfalls that prior to January 1st that we've identified or areas that we need to catch up before that deadline?
I would say no, and I think that to respond to that, it would be, the reason for that is in our policies that we currently have active at this moment, those things are already in our policy. As I kind of mentioned, it's more of a reorganization of the policies, not so much that we're adopting new content into the policies. It's things that we've already been had in our policy, and things that we've been trained with our officers and utilizing in our SOPs.
Okay, great.
So there's been a slight delay, like in our plan. I mean, the plan was to get these draft policies to you for review for quite some time now. But as you start to look at this and you start to think, well, what's the spirit of the policy put out by the state? And then now should we incorporate that into this? And then also this and this. And so, our sort of original approach was right in here. And now what we're hopefully going to be, producing to you for review and approval is now probably this. So we are expecting, hopefully anytime soon here, to get those to you for review, for discussion. And then we'll implement our training with that.
And how many did we send to training? For the trainer?
I believe it was 5 that we sent.
But that was different than our de-escalation training that was part of our budget this summer.
Yes.
Everybody did the de-escalation training.
Yes, so this is, post, Police Officer Standards Training Council said every department has to teach this particular training program. So that means you have to send representatives or instructors to us to get this material, to learn it, to be taught it, to then go back. And so we sent 5.
But on the virtual trainer, does it allow us to capture metrics like hours used or scenarios run, or simple things like that? But maybe you could give us a little more sophisticated answer. And the reason why I'm asking is so that in the future we can say, hey, this was a smart investment in training, and we use that for justification for further training aids.
So I don't have a clear answer, except I expect that it will, because we did get to use it one day for several hours to try to really experience what it is, and I can't wait for you to be able to have the opportunity to do it, because it's fantastic. Like, it really is. And the scenarios that they put me through, it could go back and show you all of your movements, all the things that you did, and it gives you an opportunity to critique it. And it really is amazing, because although you're looking at it on a screen as if it's sort of animated, when you're in that environment, it just seems like you're there.
All around you.
The sound, the sight, everything, it is fantastic.
But we are keeping records of how many hours are being used so that we can document we've had 50 hours of training.
Yeah, and
Okay.
each officer gets X number, and we haven't done the training yet on that.
Okay.
And we're waiting for these to go through. But we had one day where we used it for several hours, put people through, tested the equipment, made sure it all worked. But that's a very good point. And I imagine it does have that capability. But we track every hour of training as it is.
All that data will be captured one way or another, whether it's
Yeah.
through the system or through just, a spreadsheet or what have you. We'll have that data available.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other business we have missed? In that case,
Just a quick update on any movement on the dog program.
So very little movement. We are still looking for a vendor for the dog. And we're in discussions with town manager about, what sources of funding we would have available. So hoping to find out in the next couple of weeks, whether we can secure a vendor or not for the dog.
Any other questions?
Not for me, thank you.
Fine.
All right, in that case, do you have anything you want to
I
suggest?
would, yes, I would suggest at this point that we, motion to adjourn, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 5:43 PM.